Picture this. March 2020. Hospitals overflowing. Entire countries locked down. A virus nobody had seen before was killing people at random. But here's what nobody knew at the time. Your survival might have depended on DNA that was 40,000 years old. Scientists discovered that people carrying a specific variant of the OAS1 gene were significantly less likely to develop severe COVID-19. This wasn't some modern mutation. This protective gene came from Neanderthals. The same ancient relatives we'd written off as evolutionary dead ends had actually left us a genetic gift that was still saving lives in ICU wards across the world. But this story begins long before any pandemic. 47,000 years ago, small bands of Homo sapiens were making the most dangerous journey in human history. They were leaving the warmth and familiarity of Africa for a world that wanted them dead. The Eurasia they entered was nothing like the Africa they'd evolved in. This was Ice Age Earth. Massive glacial sheets, some over a mile thick, covered most of northern Europe. South of the ice, vast stretches of permafrost created a landscape of frozen tundra, where temperatures hovered around freezing year-round. The forests they knew were gone, replaced by barren steppes where resources were scarce and seasonal. But the cold was just the beginning of their problems. These migrating humans faced a triple threat that should have wiped them out entirely. First, the pathogens. Every step into Eurasia exposed them to bacteria, viruses, and parasites their immune systems had never encountered. Their African-adapted defenses were useless against the microbial landscape that had been evolving in Eurasia for hundreds of thousands of years. Second, the metabolism challenge. The Ice Age diet was completely different from what they knew. No tropical fruits, no familiar plants. Survival meant hunting massive, dangerous animals, and storing enough fat to survive brutal winters when nothing grew. Third, and perhaps most critically, they were genetically bottlenecked. These weren't large, diverse populations. These were tiny founding groups, maybe a few hundred individuals, carrying limited genetic variation. When you're facing entirely new environmental pressures with a restricted gene pool, extinction becomes the most likely outcome. But there was a solution: walking around Eurasia. Neanderthals had been living in these conditions for over 200,000 years. Their immune systems had co-evolved with local pathogens. Their metabolism was fine-tuned for Ice Age survival. Their skin and hair were adapted for the cold. When these two human species met, something remarkable happened. They didn't just compete, they interbred. And the hybrid offspring inherited the best of both genetic toolkits. Natural selection then went to work like a quality control system. The harmful Neanderthal genes got filtered out over generations. The beneficial ones spread rapidly through the population. What survived this genetic filtering process became our secret weapons for conquering the planet. Let's break down exactly how these ancient genes kept our ancestors alive, starting with that COVID gene I mentioned. The OAS1 gene produces an enzyme that detects viral RNA and destroys it before the virus can replicate. The Neanderthal version creates a more stable, more active form of this enzyme. When SARS-CoV-2 invaded human cells, people with the Neanderthal variant had a preloaded antiviral system that was already optimized to fight RNA viruses. This wasn't luck. Our ancestors had been encountering RNA viruses for tens of thousands of years, and the Neanderthal OAS1 gene had been protecting them the entire time. The 2020 pandemic just revealed what this ancient inheritance had been doing all along. But viral defense was just one upgrade. The Neanderthal immune system came with a broad-spectrum pathogen detection system called the TLR gene cluster. Think of these genes as security guards that patrol your cellular borders, looking for molecular signatures of invading bacteria, fungi, and parasites. The Neanderthal versions of these TLR genes are hypervigilant. They detect threats faster and trigger stronger inflammatory responses. For humans entering Eurasia, this was like getting an immediate software update for their immune system, pre-programmed to recognize the specific threats they'd encounter in their new environment. The third major upgrade involved the genes that build our physical interface with the environment, our skin and hair. Neanderthal DNA is heavily concentrated in keratin genes, which produce the tough, fibrous proteins that give structure to skin, hair, and nails. The Neanderthal variants produced thicker, more resilient skin and denser hair. In Ice Age Europe, this wasn't cosmetic. This was survival equipment. Thicker skin provided better insulation against the cold, and more protection against the intense UV radiation at higher latitudes. Denser hair created an additional layer of thermal protection that could mean the difference between life and death during brutal winters. But perhaps the most crucial adaptation involved metabolism. The Neanderthal genes that modern Europeans inherited are heavily involved in fat storage and lipid metabolism. These variants made our ancestors more efficient at extracting energy from the high-fat, meat-heavy diet that was necessary for Ice Age survival. More importantly, these genes optimize the body's ability to store energy as fat during times of abundance, and then efficiently burn that fat during periods of scarcity. In a feast or famine environment, where a successful hunt might be followed by weeks of near starvation, this metabolic flexibility was absolutely critical. The pattern here is striking. Every major Neanderthal contribution targeted the systems that directly interface with the environment: immune defense, skin and hair protection, and metabolic adaptation. These weren't random genetic exchanges. This was targeted biological warfare equipment, pre-tested for 200,000 years in the exact conditions our ancestors were trying to survive. And it wasn't just Neanderthals. Denisovans, another archaic human group, contributed the EPAS1 gene that allows modern Tibetans to thrive at extreme altitudes. This gene prevents the dangerous overproduction of red blood cells that kills lowlanders who try to live above 4,000 meters. Tibetans inherited this high-altitude survival kit from Denisovans and used it to colonize one of the most challenging environments on Earth. The evidence is overwhelming. These archaic genes didn't just help our ancestors survive, they made global human expansion possible. But these ancient solutions created modern problems. The same genetic variants that saved our ancestors in the Ice Age are now contributing to some of our biggest health challenges. This is what scientists call the mismatch hypothesis. Genes that were perfectly optimized for Pleistocene survival conditions can become liabilities in our modern environment. Take that hypervigilant immune system I described. The Neanderthal TLR genes that provided broad-spectrum pathogen defense now overreact to harmless substances. The same genetic variants that protected against deadly Eurasian bacteria are directly linked to increased rates of allergies and autoimmune diseases in modern populations. Your hay fever might literally be the price of your ancestors surviving their first European winter. The efficient fat storage genes tell a similar story. In Ice Age Europe, the ability to rapidly convert food into stored energy and then efficiently burn that fat during lean periods was a matter of life and death. Those same metabolic variants are now major contributors to the modern obesity and type 2 diabetes epidemics. The genes that helped your ancestors survive months of near starvation are now working against you in a world of constant food abundance. Even the blood clotting genes that Neanderthals contributed come with trade-offs. Rapid blood clotting was crucial for survival in a world without antibiotics, where any wound could become a fatal infection. But in our modern context, where we live longer and face different health challenges, these hypercoagulation variants increase the risk of strokes, pulmonary embolisms, and pregnancy complications. The pattern is consistent across multiple systems. Enhanced immune responses lead to autoimmune disorders. Efficient energy storage contributes to metabolic syndrome. Rapid wound healing increases cardiovascular risks. The very adaptations that made global human expansion possible are now sources of chronic disease. This isn't evolution being cruel. Evolution doesn't plan for the future. These genes were solutions to immediate, life or death problems. The fact that they caused different problems 40,000 years later in a completely transformed environment is simply the cost of our ancestral survival. The evidence is written in our DNA. Modern humans are not the pure lineage we once thought we were. We're hybrids. Every person of non-African ancestry carries genetic fragments from at least 2 extinct human species. Between 1 and 4% of your genome came from Neanderthals and Denisovans, and that small percentage continues to shape your biology today. The Neanderthal genes that protected against ancient pathogens are still protecting you against modern viruses. The metabolic adaptations that help survive Ice Age famines are still influencing how your body processes food. The immune system upgrades that defended against Eurasian bacteria are still determining how your body responds to infections and allergens. This hybrid inheritance is why human expansion succeeded where it should have failed. Those small bands leaving Africa weren't just carrying their own limited genetic toolkit. Through interbreeding, they acquired pre-tested solutions to environmental challenges they hadn't even encountered yet. They inherited 200,000 years of local adaptation in a single generation. The story of human evolution isn't one of replacement and extinction. It's a story of assimilation and genetic collaboration. Our success as a species came not from outcompeting other humans, but from incorporating their hard-won adaptations into our own genome. The Neanderthal genes didn't just save our ancestors. They're still saving us today, one viral infection at a time. If this journey through our hybrid origins left you questioning everything you thought you knew about human evolution, subscribe to see what other uncomfortable truths are buried in our DNA.